Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Everyone, I would like to welcome you sitting here in this room and the audience watching us online to this discussion on very important and current topic, atom, pro or con. My name is Barbora Krempaská and I am representing the foundation, the Friedrich Naumann Foundation for Freedom, which is one of the main partners of Freedom Games. And I am very pleased to be here and moderate such important debate with such great panelists. So let me introduce you our speakers today. Mrs. Urszula Zielińska, chairwoman of the Zieloni party and member of the Polish parliament. Mr. Andrzej Domański, the chief economist of Instytut Obywatelski and financial market analyst. Mrs. Agnieszka Dziemianowicz-Bąk, member of the Polish parliament for Nowa Lewica. And Mrs. Agata Brzezińska, vice president of the Photo for Climate Foundation. Ladies and gentlemen, how to fix the world's energy emergency without wrecking the climate? This is one of the most crucial questions of these days. This year's energy shock is the most serious since the Middle Eastern oil crisis of the 1970s. We are facing massive inflation and record energy price rises. It is only now that many countries have really realized how dependent we are on Russian gas. Even before the first Ukrainian crisis in 2014, or even before, Poland, then led by Prime Minister Donald Tusk, actively declared that Poland and the entire European Union must strive for energy independence and self-reliance. The only way to this independence should be a healthy energy mix, which includes nuclear energy too. Among the supporters of nuclear energy are, for example, Britain, France, or also our neighbors, Czech Republic or Slovakia. In the contrary, after the Fukushima nuclear accident in 2011, the Germans decided to move away from nuclear power by 2022 and have been trying to push this narrative at European level ever since. At this time of energy crisis, a part of the German society started to reconsider this decision. Under the pressure of events, the Germans are forced to keep the last reactors in operation despite their green agenda. It turns out that the fear of atom has put Europe into a huge dependence on Russian energy. The invasion of Ukraine also underscores a more general energy security argument in favor for nuclear power plants, and also in order to speed up the decarbonization. As the topic of this weekend of this year's Freedom Games is independence, the green independence, my first sort of warm-up question for all of you would be, what does green independence mean to you? And is atom a part of it or not? I would like you to ask simply yes or no and define green independence, if possible, with one sentence.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Po polsku ustaliśmy.
Do you prefer me to speak Polish? I'm more than willing to speak Polish. Independence And energy independence means basing on energy sources that are local in a specific country without the need to import. They are safe, no fuel dependency, no need to bring in fuels from outside the country. Luckily enough, this is possible today. Good evening. It is time to thank for inviting me to this meeting that will be speaking about nuclear energy, but not only, decarbonization in a broader sense. Answering your question, green independence, energy safety of Poland, based on a plethora of sources, whilst going into deep decarbonization and the retention of biodiversity, which is important. This is my perception of green independence. Nuclear energy is the element of the solution. Good evening. In order not to copycat what has been said, green independence, energy independence that serves the purpose of climate goals, and there is no green independence without atomic solutions. Good evening. I'd like to thank for the fact that I can be part of this hugely important debate, especially in 2022. Green independence, something that should be discussed on two planes. Freedom, freedom from the climate catastrophe that we are facing, something that is unavoidable. This is sovereignty. But today, it is impossible to forget about energy independence in the context of geopolitical events and Russia's aggression in Ukraine. And in this sense, this is raison d'etat, sovereignty, political sovereignty. To back up my words, atom should be a part of this independence, and I'm going to back it up with an example. Sovereignty and independence means that we can make independent political decisions that are untangled. Today in Europe, we have the debate in the European Parliament and in the national arena, whether after the recent incidents, can we and should we describe Russia as a terrorist state? As a matter of fact, it should raise no doubts. Why hasn't that happened? Because there are countries, Germany, which are still dependent on resources dictatorship of Russia. They gain gas from Russia. And describing Russia as a terrorist state means discontinuation of any kind of transactions with Russia. Inability to make this decision is therefore lack of sovereignty and independence. In this practical sense, atom must be an element, or should be an element, like it is the case in Germany, of developing independence in the sense of energy.
Jeszcze jedno zdanie ode mnie.
One more sentence from me. It's clear. I want to highlight the fact. Today, according to all the data available from the Polish scientists and the power engineering sector, this sovereignty and green independence in Poland can be built alongside with the climate neutrality by 2040 without atomic energy.
We'll continue with this topic later on, but now I would like to go on with the topic of the independence. As I already indicated, we are not talking only about the green independence, but also about the independence of individual states from each other. So, Mrs. Dziemianowicz-Bąk, is the atom necessary to achieve energy independence for Poland and for Europe in general? Is the nuclear energy a solution to this energy crisis or to our climate crisis? Or even, could this crisis have been avoided if Europe and Poland has used more nuclear energy long before?
Ja postaram
I'll be trying to give the most responsible answers. As of today, there is no other stable, low-emission source of energy rather than atom. where we can base our independence. Not only this source of energy, we representatives and other proponents of atomic energy speak about this being a part of the energy mix, where renewable energy sources should play a vital role. This is not RES atom opposition. This is complementary solution that stabilizes the energy system based on low emission sources that are not based on fossil fuels. Yes, as of today, there is no other possibility rather than invest in atomic energy in order to have this kind of level of independence, because responsible policy should not count on miracles that in the perspective of 3 or 5 years, there'll be a perfect solution that makes it possible to protect ourselves from the necessity to invest in nuclear energy. And the second important answer, this year's crisis, atomic energy will not be the answer because the construction of small reactors does not happen overnight. This is many-year investment, and this investment was neglected decades ago by different political parties. And this is not a solution today, which does not mean that we shouldn't take up this challenge, because there'll be more crises, more threats. Climate catastrophe is looming in the air, so this is the investment worth taking. But we want to look for the answer how to cope with this winter and autumn. We need to find solutions here and now, smaller ones and simpler. Incentives to save energy, to replace energy efficient home appliances, give the possibility to the state to support this kind of activities. This is where we can do things. I don't want to say that the time will come for greater investment, because this is the time now, but the return of investments should appear when we have further crises and challenges.
Of
and
course, it
needs.
is really important to think also about our future. And I would like to ask Mrs. Zielińska, because you already said that atom or nuclear energy is unnecessary for Polish energy sector. Do you still insist on this also, despite all the facts that we need a stable energy source also for the future? Is the atom not a sufficiently green and stable source of energy? Many believe that the nuclear energy could be an effective source of energy during the transition to the renewables, or even supplement them in, for example, populous areas in order to reach the goal of CO2 neutrality. Because as we all know, the biggest problem in Poland is that many people are still relying on coal. And as we saw in the last days, the current government is encouraging them to do so. So what do you think?
I think that part of the problem of us being in this place is that we need to change energy models very quickly in order to be independent of fossil fuels from Russia, and to be independent of fossil fuels in general. Part of the problem is the fact that politicians and energy sectors have relied on interim solutions for many decades. And this is how we didn't do our homework after the oil crisis. Instead of looking at the technologies of the future, investing in the future technologies. This crisis was used or abused to invest huge money into fossil fuels and old technologies. Therefore, we are stuck. Being myself a head of the Green Party, I'd like to say about models that are present today. First and foremost, let's not repeat past mistakes. I'm referring to Ursula von der Leyen's words a few weeks ago. This is what she was indicated in September presentation in front of the Commission, the Parliament, and all Europeans. Let's not rehearse the past mistakes. Let's have a lesson learned. And I want to clearly say there are energy models for Poland for self-sufficiency. We can rely on our own energy resources. Polish wind, onshore, offshore, Polish sun, biogas, waste biogas, energy efficiency. When talking about energy, this is very often neglected. Savings and improvements of energy efficiency. This is the model to check. Professor Jan Popczyk's model from Silesia University of Technology relies on this. And this model is feasible for implementation in Poland by 2040. It assumes energy sources stability, the basis of what we have. Without energy storage facilities, they are developing, but the prices are very high. This is still the technology that needs to become mature in order to be commercialized. This is one of the models. And another model that Marcin Popkiewicz describes in his latest book, to understand energy transformation. This is the model that describes Poland's energy demand, which does not include nuclear energy into this, which assumes gloomy scenarios. January is the month when there is no wind, no sun in theory. It'll be no sun and 15 degrees below zero. And in this model, scientists prove that we are able to produce energy, that this is stable for energy supply with high energy efficiency of the sun, wind, and little energy that has been stored in hydrogen. These are examples that we develop. They are available. I suggest becoming familiar with these. So it's not true that stable energy, stable mix is not possible without nuclear energy. Quite contrary, if aggression showed anything, and this difficult year, that we need to think twice whether declining technology involvement that is so very much susceptible to war changes, that it is used by Russia to blackmail us with energy. This may result in catastrophe in Zaporozhye that is so very much susceptible to climate change. Look what happened in France this year. French energy is based 70% on nuclear energy. Half of the units were unable to work because there was shortage of water and drought. That was in Europe and Poland. This year shows quite clearly that we need to depart from this bridging, from interim technologies, and invest in truly cutting-edge technologies of the future.
Mrs. Brzezińska, within your organization, Fodder for Climate, you are actively fighting for the protection of our environment and green transformation. How do you assess the negative environmental impacts of nuclear energy? For example, the storage of nuclear waste. Or do you think they play a negligible role compared to its efficiency and compared to other types of energy?
Thank you for your question. I would like to begin from saying that each energy source has its negative impact on the environment. Every infrastructure project will have it. Each digging of a hole may be considered a negative factor for the environment. As regards the waste, well, the question assumes that waste storage will have a negative impact, and it could be so if the waste was not properly deposited. The highly active deposit is indeed very, very little compared to other energy source wastes. The current technologies allow for the storing the waste for several thousand years until the radioactivity is equal to that of a regular stone. Moreover, works are pending on modern technologies of processing and disposal of nuclear waste. In the future, nuclear waste would be used in fourth generation reactors. They are not here yet, but we cannot say this is an obsolete technology. This is a technology that is continuously expanding. As regards the nuclear waste, apart from the highly active waste, we also have medium and low active waste that come in larger quantities. I don't know if you all know, but in Poland there is a storage in Różan for medium and low activity waste. This waste does not require special storage. They are stored on the safest, covered with concrete, covered with several meters of soil, and that is sufficient to prevent it from any harmful effect on human life. We also have a reactor for medical purposes that generates radiopharmaceuticals for sick people. So the green evolution without the atom would be regression in medicine and also a growth of cancer cases. The high active waste is stored several hundred or even kilometers under the surface. The waste is stored in tight shells in specially drilled tunnels and concreted. Such waste can be stored for a couple of thousand of years, being fully safe. Please note that history of storage has no record of contamination incident from civil waste of highly active civil deposit of highly medium and low waste deposit. Points of interest regarding the size of the storage. In the atomic fronts, the volume of atomic waste per a French person is 5 grams, negligible compared to other energy sources. In Poland, the fossil fuel waste kill about 100,000 people a year. That is incomparable. Moreover, if we convert all the power plants in the world into nuclear ones, high activity waste generated in a lifetime of a man could be handled on human's hand. That satisfies me. We should also mention that in the case of highly active waste, that waste is under full responsibility of the waste generator. That never happens in any other technological process generating waste. No other power plant holds such liability for its waste. Also, the security of the entire process of the plant is guaranteed by a very precise selection of location for the plant. It is chosen based on many stringent factors. There is a special zone, protection zone around the power plant, and the power plants use state-of-the-art security systems. These are not individual sectors, these are sequences of security systems, systems for systems. There is no option that anybody could press a button to blow up the reactor. It's out of the question. We also have, in terms of the nuclear power plant resilience, they have to be resilient to earthquakes, fires, floods, crashes, and any act of terrorism that we can think of today. The construction process is always supervised by the International Agency of Nuclear Energy. Every stage of construction requires commissioning from the agency inspectors. Every single component that affects its security and safety is commissioned, inspected, and only that authorized for use. I could see a production facility that manufactures steel components that even the series of drillings and the plate is accepted. If they are wrong, the plate is scrapped and produced again. That would be all. As I told you, I also assess the impact. I've been doing it for 15 years. In the light of my experience, I must say that nuclear power plants protect the environment to the highest extent by occupying least space. Thank you.
Dziękuję. Thank you very much for such complexity in your answer. And now I would like to move from the environmental aspect to the financial aspect, because as we know, the green transformation is and will be expensive. Renewable energies will prolong the life of our planet, but we all have to pay the price. On the other hand, building of new nuclear power plants, but also a lot of time. I therefore ask you, Mr. Domański, do you think it is efficient to build new nuclear power plants instead of immediately investing in renewable energy infrastructure? This is an important issue both in the short term, because we need a quick solution in this energy crisis, but also in the long term, in terms of the reliability of the energy sources and the financial costs.
Thank you very much. Obviously, the question about efficiency is vital. Atomic energy technology is by no means emerging. It is continuously developed. Moreover, I would say we observe the renaissance of atomic energy. France has declared building 6 new nuclear units. 2 days ago, Sweden, the country with potential hydropower potential, changed their energy policy and are planning to build new nuclear units. Slovakia will soon have fully decarbonized energy sector, and not because of the renewable energy, but nuclear one. That energy, they will export their energy to Poland, because we are facing terrible crisis in 2025 at the latest. Efficiency. Why atomic energy is so efficient? The recently opened power plant in Finland will generate 12.5 hours of energy. That would be 7.5% of Polish consumption. To generate the same value with 2.5 wind turbines working with regular efficiency of 30%, we would need to erect 2,000 windmills. The whole Denmark, that is the leader in wind turbines has 6,000 turbines. That is imagine 2,000 windmills. This Finnish power plant, nuclear power plants are very effective in using such resources as land. The whole power plant, in terms of the reactor, is 1.5, 2 hectares. Together with all the adjacent facilities, we speak about 30, 40 hectares of land. Erecting 2,000 windmills would take 2,000 hectares. The calculation is pretty simple. So, and I'm saying that as a person who is the co-author of the bill that was passed through the Senate and is combating the 10 hectares law by peace that blocked the windmills in Poland, we must say atomic energy is not the only and sole solution. Renewables plus atomic energy plus efficiency plus energy storage plus hydrogen. That is the mix we have to expand. I strongly object creating this false dilemma choice, renewables or atom. It's a fake argument for many years used by the opponents of nuclear energy. By the way, why Sweden, France, Slovakia, and other Western European countries get back to the atomic energy? Perhaps they haven't seen the Professor Popczyk's model, but they understood that the system has to have stable and predictable source, that is nuclear energy. One more thing. We frequently speak about decarbonization of the power system. In Poland, world doesn't need decarbonizations. We need deep decarbonization. If net zero in 2055 is a realistic goal, there was a question about cost. It would be cheaper using nuclear technologies. And there are calculations and research for that, like Professor Jenkins from the MIT, also Dr. Gajda from the Kraków University of Technology discussed that. Yes, atomic energy is effective, is needed, and by no means it is competitive or against renewables. Let me just mention that the climate crisis team at the Polish Academy of Science stated that nuclear technology is an element of the entire solution.
Thank you very much. Let's move back to the narrative, to, let's say, German narrative about atom. Mrs. Brzezińska, you actively protested against the closure of nuclear power plants in Germany. The Germans relied on an energy mix of renewables plus gas as so-called bridge technology because they got scared of the atom and they so became strongly dependent on Russia. In your opinion, is there a way out? And you partly already answered this question, but is atom really so dangerous? Or what is the main reason for avoiding the nuclear power? What about the local community living close to the power plants? How could they be involved in the dialogue in order to convince them about the necessity of nuclear power plants?
Dziękuję.
Thank you. As Andrzej has just mentioned, the whole European energy system demands deep decarbonization. Without it, we cannot speak of reaching the climate goals. One vital item, transferring from coal to gas, is only partial decarbonization. Shifting from atom to decarbonization is no decarbonization at all. It's recarbonization. Switching off working nuclear power plants and replacing them with gas or coal is recarbonization. I disagree that the Germans fear atomic energy, and that's why they have Energiewende. They wanted to fulfill their goals. Germany, as the first country in Europe, invested in the expansion of renewables, which are a vital element of the energy mix that will help us reach climate goals. However, I am convinced that the Germans acting was supposed to find selling markets to resell gas going to Germany by 2 pipelines, perhaps not any longer. Germans, by demonizing the atomic energy, prepared markets for renewable energy solutions where they are the European leader. Well, I sort of complain about this behavior. Germans could have been a global decarbonization leader had they not switched off their atomic power plants. What they are doing is surprising also to other governments. And as Andrzej mentioned, other countries are getting back to atom. And one party in Germany says they don't need atomic energy. With regard to fear of atomic energy, many people who are not interested in nuclear energy mix atomic bomb and atomic reactor. People think there is an atomic bomb in the reactor that instead of destruction generates energy. We all remember those tragic pictures from Hiroshima and Nagasaki. We all went through civil defense classes preparing us to potential nuclear threat. We should also bear in mind that we are afraid of the unseen. You cannot see radiation. You cannot sense it, see it, touch it. For that, you need to have security system in place. We do have them. So there is no threat whatsoever. Let me add that it seems to me that had it not been for the activities of central NGOs, we wouldn't face fear. The fear is all the time heated up by certain NGOs, certain political parties, in order to achieve economic and political goals. But if they weren't here, I believe we wouldn't have that strong resistance to atomic energy, or it would be marginal. We should also refer to these 2 catastrophes, the Chernobyl and Fukushima disasters that drive the fear. Even considering the size of these 2 catastrophes, we can still speak about restricted effects of the disasters. Chernobyl was the errors in the construction that were quickly eliminated. Today, there is no operating reactor that would include the errors from Chernobyl, and there was, of course, the human error. It was also eliminated by upgrading security systems and introducing double, triple security system. The Fukushima disaster is the natural one. It was a horrific tsunami that killed 20,000 people, but nobody died because of radiation. 2 reactors were damaged and flooded, but radiation didn't kill anybody. That means our protection systems are strong and good enough. The catastrophe taught us a lesson, and currently atomic power plants in Japan are protected even against stronger tsunami that happened in 2011 in Fukushima. with regard to local communities, I trust they benefit from having a power plant nearby, like economic benefits. The power plant provides jobs for a couple of thousand people, and considering the necessity of continuing supplies of products, services, we can speak of several thousand people benefiting financially from the presence of a power plant in their vicinity. An atomic plant is also stable jobs, not only for nuclear physicists. A nuclear power plant hires specialists not related to energy industry. A nuclear power plant requires for office staff, legal staff, fitters, drivers, cleaners, cookers, so it provides stable jobs for many years. We can even say it's like an investment, long-term investment. So we can say if today we make a decision on building a power plant, benefits will come to us, our children, and our grandchildren and grandchildren. How to convince local communities? I would recommend the debate with those communities that live in the neighborhood of a power plant, nuclear power plant, because usually they are very pro-atomic, and currently Poles also support atomic energy. 65% of Poles support building such a power plant in Poland.
And I would like to carry on. And Mrs. Zielińska, as Ms. Brzezińska said, according to opinion polls, unlike the Germans, most Poles think nuclear energy is good and support its use. Can you imagine that the opinion of the Polish people could change in the near future? What needs to be done for it? What alternatives do you see? And what do you propose? How do you intend to convince the Poles of these alternatives?
Przede wszystkim zacznę od
First and foremost, I start by asking what kind of poll tells you that all Poles or majority of Poles are in for nuclear energy. Because in front of me, there is CEBOS continuous opinion poll every year in Poland, and its latest edition of 2021 I've got in front of me. Check it, CEBOS, May 2020 communication shows clearly that you can't see the document from here, page 4, 10-page quantitative research. 45% of Poles say they are against power plant construction in Poland. 39 would be for, and this is one of the questions. The other question, would you like to have a power plant in your vicinity, this kind of nuclear power plant, in your neighborhood, in the place where you live? Would you be for or against? And the data is even different here, even more dramatic. Against, 64%. 64% of Poles oppose the construction of nuclear power plant. Only 24% would be for the construction of it, should it be created in the neighborhood. I don't know whether we have guests from Choczewo or Lubiatów. Hello, there you are. You know best, because on your beach, one of the most beautiful beaches of the Baltic Sea, Nature 2K, there is the plan to create the first nuclear power plant in Poland. And these people represent one of 64% of Poles who wouldn't like to have this kind of installation. in their neighborhood, but 45% of Poles are against, 39 for, state of today. What I want to encourage you to do is realizing, once debating for and against nuclear power, it has continued for 40 years, how sensitive time point we are, what we need to be aware of. 3 states, 3 investors offered Poland to create a power plant. France, EDF, US, Westinghouse, and a company from South Korea. By the end of this year, Polish government is to select the technology and supplier. 3 countries, 3 investors want to sell their technologies. They do it in an intense way. They're in public space. There is a lot of untransparent lobbying without any signature. First and foremost, to want this technology. Second of all, to be positive to this technology. We need to be aware of that. And I encourage you not to believe everything, take everything for granted. Lots of information in this panel, some of the information not according to the facts. We have too little time to speak about all the questions, but let me touch upon the most important ones. Today, we have serious problems and priorities. We want to finish the war in Ukraine as fast as possible and become independent from fossil fuels imported from Russia, also by being independent on the European scale, because this gives money to Putin. This is the first priority. Second priority, we need clean and economical energy sources, because the prices of energy go crazy in Europe and in Poland. By 2030, we need to lower greenhouse gases emissions by at least 60% in order to be on the safe side of the crisis. So nuclear energy in Poland, potentially, how does it respond to the problems? First, it does not answer to the first problem. 1/5 of fuel is imported from Russia. USA is dependent on cheap uranium from Russia. Europe does not have it. 20% is imported from Kazakhstan and Nigeria. This is the majority of the fuel. It comes from not necessarily democratic countries or non-democratic countries. Europe does not have the plan to depart from this import from Russia. It fuels the war. And the second thing, cheap energy. Nuclear energy is one of the most expensive in the world, investment-wise and final. British auctions, check it, 2.5 times more expensive when you compare nuclear energy and RES. Investments, the latest, the most cutting edge in Europe, created within 3-year period. This is a PV farm, 1 gigawatt of installed capacity, 10 times cheaper compared to 1 gigawatt compared to the offer Poland got from EDF. If we take out efficiency element, this is still 6 times difference. So this is the price difference. Investments and energy. And there's 7 years to cut down emissions by 50%. We won't build even single nuclear unit in 7 years. France has been building Flamanville for 17 years. delays similar. Delays period, energy state in the world. It's 9 years in delay. Nuclear units are built where there are no procedures, high quality procedures with regard to safety in not democratic countries like Ostrołęka. In Europe, all investments, there is 4 times delay compared to the original plan. So there are some aspects, think critically about technology. If we were to invest 200 billion zlotys for one of these power plants that are being planned in Poland, in Chorczewo by the Baltic Sea, in Nature 2K area. 230 billion is the French EDF appraisal. The other two, we don't know. It's not transparent. I'm trying to learn it being myself an MP. These are huge costs. Alternative technologies exist and they are number of times cheaper and safer. We don't need nuclear energy in Poland. Thank you.
Very much, Mrs. Zielińska. I would like you to keep your answer short because we are running out of time, unfortunately. And I would really like to give the opportunity our audience to ask questions. So I am sure that Mr. Domański and Mrs. Dziemianowicz-Bąk want to react. But also the last questions for you. Not only Polish people, but Polish political spectrum, the most of political parties in Poland want nuclear energy. It was recently a debate in Polish Sejm about the responsibility that Poland could rent remaining German nuclear reactors. So I would like to ask Mrs. Dziemianowicz-Bąk if you think if this would be realistic and how to bring solution for the expenses of building a new power station in Poland.
Dziękuję bardzo za zapytanie.
Thank you very much for this question, but I cannot refrain myself from not referring to what the previous speaker said. I'd like to join Ursula. Once listening to debate, be critical and have watchful ear, because how the debate is said, how the problem is set and alternatives are set, this is how we draw conclusions from that. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to say what was said today. We are not discussing whether to invest in RESs, whether to invest in nuclear energy. We should be discussing, and this is the dilemma, how to stabilize RESs. Nobody questions the investment need. Nobody questions this, the basic priorities, and the outlays should increase in RESs. The main dilemma, stabilizer for RESs, nuclear energy or fossil fuels, gas, as it is the case of Germany ever since they departed from nuclear energy, or coal. And Germans are switching back to coal, what Agata Brzezińska was speaking about, recarbonization. When I'm reading the head of German Greens who says that the pact to return to coal is a success to attain climate goals, I don't know whether I'm reading the Green Party's head or the coal lobbyist head. This is absurdity. Equally big absurdity is to believe that gas is a renewable energy source, anti-Russian stabilizer. Urszula Zielińska was speaking about war in Ukraine, showing how dangerous is nuclear energy is because of Zaporozhye. Russian aggression showed one thing clearly, how bad stabilizer of RESs is based on gas. We would have been in a different situation if Germans decided not to base themselves not on RESs only, but also on gas. Let's discuss facts and figures. Let's not create false dichotomies. They are not here. Let's invest into RESs. You can do it faster. Let's unblock windmills. Right arguments. I understand, being myself an MP, I listen to those in whose vicinity there would be investment. But it was the argument of law and justice against windmills. People didn't want them to be on the land next to them. You cannot make a juxtaposition with your life. Let's not be demagogical. Somebody was scared of something they don't know, as Agata Brzezińska said. Would give up on fighting climate change and would be dependent on the dictator in Kremlin. It's not the way it is. Now, briefly, support for nuclear energy, 60%, is in line with RES's support. Polish society understands that this is not alternative, that it needs to go hand in hand. Politicians should listen to the society, learning what they want to attain and invest in these. As we were saying earlier, this is not true. You cannot build nuclear energy faster. It's not true that only non-democratic countries or face grabbers that do it. Agata Brzezińska next to me said, Japan can do it. Special times need special mobility. There is unprecedented solution like leasing nuclear energy from Germany. This is what left wing suggested. And I'm very happy that different political milieus accepted it this way. There was a debate in the same. It's a solution unprecedented, but as I said, difficult times require extraordinary solutions. What is more, not to lease these without saying no need to invest in our own. It is supposed to be the interim solution for the time being and the first step to create European Union's joint policy. Pandemics has shown it. Energy should be like vaccines. Poland wouldn't have had vaccines so fast against COVID if every country had to fight for them and compete in the market. Only because of the Union's united policy, it was possible to provide for these and to fight with the pandemics. And the same applies to energy crisis. This leasing, this supranatural collaboration should be the basis for the creation of European Minister of Energy, common distribution, reaction to the crisis as we are facing now, together, cross-border, to strengthen integration. Right. And add on, with regards to the period, 12 years seems distant, but it's outrageous that it's too late for atom. This is made by organizations, let's call them by names, Greenpeace, and some parties that for years saboted the process of nuclear power plant construction. This is unethical. One more thing, as Ms. Zielińska said, check facts and figures and visit electricitymap.org, where you can see emissions of all systems in Europe. Polish energy sector, for every kilowatt hour of energy, emits 700 grams of CO2. Germany, leader of green transformation, 350, 400 grams. Twice better, half of what Poland does. France, 80 grams. Thank you. This solves the problem of technologies, which should be the element of solution that leads into in-depth decarbonization. I refuse accepting the fact that the future of generations, my daughter included, is based on unchecked models when we have a solution that has been checked, low emission, and nuclear energy is the solution.
I really know that you want to react, but we are out of time, and I don't know. This is the question for the organizer? If we can, if we can go on a little bit. It's not possible. I hear it's not possible. I really, I really didn't expect it to become such a hot topic and heat discussion. But really, I think we can stay here and discuss it unofficially. Thank you very much for attending this discussion. Thank you very much for your attention, and have a nice rest of the weekend.
Dziękuję bardzo.
It's not always easy to recognize. It may look like this, or like this. It may be a burden, but it is a responsibility that we embrace nonetheless. But if it means this for one person and this for someone else, maybe it ultimately means being there for one another. It isn't handed to us, but we know where to find it and how it feels, how it tastes, and what it sounds like when we finally have it. It means different things to different people, but for many, it means everything. And if we all fight for it, it will eventually bring us together.
Ihre Ausreise.
Atlas Network is, as the name suggests, a network, and it's global. We work all around the world. We're based in the U.S. We have about 159 partners in the United States right now, and the bulk of our partners are outside, nearly 500 in total.
Atlas Network, it connects people from all over the world, defending the idea of human dignity, defending human rights and personal liberties.
Atlas Network is focusing on, I think, the most important and moral cause in the entire world.
We partner with local innovators, local leaders who understand conditions on the ground in communities facing real challenges. We look at the people from the worldwide freedom movement that are passionate, are ready to make a difference, understand local conditions, and we invest in them.
At Atlas Network, we unleash individual ingenuity to enrich humanity.
The United States does not have a lock on the idea of freedom and liberty. Those ideas are beyond borders.
One of the main goals of Atlas Network is to eradicate poverty around the world, and we do that by investing millions of dollars in our partners' work every year.
Historically, wealthy nations around the world have tried to help low-income countries develop. The way we've been doing it traditionally has not really been working. So there's a movement to do development differently, and that means we need to step back as outsiders and rethink the role that we're playing in helping people in low-income countries achieve their dreams.
We want to make the world a better place. We want to make the world a freer world.
All of us want to leave a legacy and be part of something big to make a better world. This is exactly the work of Atlas Network.
With our growing number of hundreds of successful partners, we're stronger than ever.
Changing the world.
Changing the world.
Changing the world
starts together with us.